everybody. This is Flea Market Fantasy number 26. This is the comic book podcast that reviews Bronze Age comic books. I am your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by...
Michael Dell, the LCS Hockey Radio Show.
That's right. And this week, I have decided to pick a comic that sort of ties in with a up-and-coming, but also 3 years, in the making movie called The New Mutants. So we are reviewing New Mutants number 4 from 1983.
Yes. Now, I watched the movie trailer yesterday for the first time.
Oh, really? Okay. What did you think of the trailer?
It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the gimmick here is they're making it into a horror film.
That's the idea, yeah.
I like that.
Now, you do realize, as I said, that this movie was slated to be released like 2 years ago, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, like I was ready to go see it at the theater 2 years ago, and then they delayed it like a year, and then they delayed it a year again. Like, this is crazy.
Now, is there a reason why they've been delaying it?
Well, as far as I know, I've heard conflicting stories, and maybe someone else knows more than me, but the way I understood it was that the creators wanted to make it a horror film. So then they tried to make it a horror film, but the studio didn't like that idea, so they sort of forced them to make it more of a superhero film. But then once they released the first cut, the studio was like, oh, you know what? We're wrong. You know what? Just go back and make it a horror film. So they went back. I'm not sure if they did more shoots or just recut it, but they made it more of a horror film. But then what happened was, then Marvel, as you know, Disney Marvel purchased 20th Century Fox. And so now they own all the X-Men and X-Men related films, right? So last summer, they put out Dark Phoenix with almost no fanfare, and it basically bombed, right?
Yes.
And so with this New Mutants film, I think the idea for the last year has been, okay, are we going to release this thing? Are we going to put it to Netflix? Are we going to, get behind it? So as it stands now, it's going to be an official Marvel Studios film. But I don't know I think they're going to go out of their way to avoid tying it to X-Men just in case it bombs, but I'm not sure.
So well, it couldn't be any worse than those recent X-Men movies.
I agree.
But the trailer looked pretty good, and I really do like the fact that they're trying to make it a horror film. Like, it's something new and unique just to them, So I like that. And I guess it comes out April 7th, I believe. Nice.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. And I like all, I'm familiar with most of the actors, like the one guy's from Stranger Things, the guy from Cannonball.
He shouldn't be playing He doesn't look anything like Cannonball.
Okay, that's true.
We'll get into the characters here.
Yeah, we'll get into them later, yeah.
But I was very angry when I saw that he was, because it's like, he looks nothing like Cannonball.
I know.
Because his physical appearance was very distinctive. All right. So New Mutants, number 4, 1983. New Mutants was created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod.
That's right.
Last week when I asked you who was the first artist of New Mutants, and you told me Bob McLeod, I did not recognize that name at all.
Really? Okay.
I had no recollection of it. But then when I saw this issue and I saw related art, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember Bob McLeod.
Sure, of course.
Because the writer here is Chris Claremont, but the penciler is Sal Buscema.
That's right.
Now, although Bob McLeod's doing the inks here, we'll get into this later.
Sure.
About the art, because there's a lot of story here. But I did try and confirm the correct pronunciation for Buscema.
Okay.
And here's what happened, Michael. The Stan Lee and John Buscema How to Draw Marvel Comics the Marvel Way video, they say Buscema. A lot of other people were saying Buscema. But then I watched interviews with Bob McLeod, and he said Buscema. So I don't know. Whatever. It's just...
Well, I think you might have touched on something here, is that it's probably somewhere in the middle, because Stan Lee does have a New York accent.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I think they probably accepted both, but I'm going to go Buscema because, I mean, that was what they said in the video where John was present.
Yeah, his brother. Yeah, so, okay.
All right, we'll go with that. Anyway, this was the New Mutants was the very first spin-off from X-Men.
Yes.
It's hard to believe because now, how many spin-offs have there been off of Uncanny X-Men?
Oh,
like 1,000?
Yeah, I mean, should we list them, or should we just people know this more than 10, more than 20?
Yeah, there's a shit ton. And but this was the very first one, the New Mutants. And the title of the New Mutants, they were struggling to come up with a title. So they went back. I think Louise Simonson, who at this point in her life was known as Louise Jones,
Right.
she had not married Walt yet. I think she had the idea of kicking it back to Mutants was the original name that Stan Lee had for the X-Men back in the day.
Right.
So they spun it and just said, "Hey, New Mutants."
I love it.
And the premise, Michael, is if I'm remembering correctly, the X-Men timeline, there was a period where Xavier thought the X-Men had died again, right? Like, wasn't it?
Yeah. Man. You know, it's funny. I've read them all, but I don't remember exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
this was around issue 150 or so of X-Men,
Okay.
151, 152, somewhere in that range. But I think they were fighting the Brood, and Xavier was under the impression that they may have all died again.
Okay.
I think. So then he decided, well, I should start recruiting young mutants again and maybe open up this school. But then it gets revealed later that at the time Xavier was possessed by the Brood or something.
Right.
And he was actually doing this to recruit young mutants so he could inject them with Brood eggs
Right. Right.
and take them over. So technically, Xavier did not want to open a new school, reopen the school again and teach young kids. He was just doing it to, harvest them for the Brood.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. And it's funny because I've read this issue before, and I don't remember that, and I've never come across that in any other,
Yes.
like references to their origin. So it's kind of weird. Maybe
Yeah, I never knew that either until encountering it in this issue, because this is issue 4.
Right.
So I guess that story happened in maybe issues 1, 2, and 3. I'm guessing.
I think they referenced that was revealed in an issue of X-Men 167. That particular little nugget. Yeah.
So, yeah, I had no idea that was part of the origin. So at this point, Xavier just says, "Hey, can you kids forgive me?"
Yeah, I know.
I tried to kill you there, but we good? And so, yeah, the kids don't trust him. But the point of the New Mutants was to be a younger team, like teenagers, and because they thought at the time the X-Men characters were all older. Some of them much older, like Wolverine was in his 30s at least.
Well, yeah, then you find out later he's like 100, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they wanted to go back to the roots of X-Men with a young team, appeal to teenagers, and make it for a younger audience. And you can definitely feel that reading this issue. As they made for a younger audience. A couple other key points here about the New Mutants. They were one of the first racially diverse teams in comics. Because we had 5 original team members here, and they all come from different countries, different cultures. So the X-Men did that too when they came in, but most of the people were still white.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. Except Storm. You're right.
Storm and Nightcrawler is blue.
Yeah. Well, Sunfire was Japanese, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah, but he didn't stick around though.
No.
So, and also 5 team members, 3 are girls.
That's right.
That's a big deal. Yep. So there you go. And I guess that was Bob McLeod who came up with that idea. He was pushing for that to have
really.
More.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's great.
Because he said he just liked drawing girls, and he's like, all right, okay, let's get 3 on the team.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Claremont had the basic ideas. He had a bunch of characters that were available to come up with for the book, and then McLeod had to visualize them all. And they whittled it down to just these 5, and McLeod was pushing to have more girls on the team, so that's how they got 3 girls.
Well, yeah, because usually with any superhero team, there's 1 or maximum 2 girls, right? No matter
especially
what.
Back then.
Right. Like Fantastic Four has 3 guys, 1 girl. X-Men had 4 guys, 1 girl. But this is just slightly off. But yeah, you definitely notice it. Like I remember even when I was a kid, I was like, that's funny. There's more girls than there's guys, Yep.
Now, they first appeared in Marvel's graphic novel number 4, which was published in November 1982. Now, an interesting note here is they weren't supposed to be a graphic novel. When Bob McLeod and Claremont started working on it, it was supposed to just be New Mutants number 1. But the graphic novel production line was way behind schedule, and they had an open spot, and they needed something to fill in. So they decided, Jim Shooter and Louise Simonson decided, Jones at the time, had decided, let's put New Mutants in there. So they had to hustle and hurry up and make it a graphic novel. And graphic novels were longer, like 50 pages.
Sure.
So Bob McLeod had to really hustle, and he was determined to ink it himself. Again, we'll get into this later. But so he had, and for him to ink it himself, that meant he had to ink it on his honeymoon.
Oh.
Yeah.
That probably didn't go over well with his wife, eh?
Yeah, he said the wife wasn't too happy about it, but then a year later, once the royalties came in, she was happy, and they took a second honeymoon.
Nice.
It worked out. So graphic novel number 4 is where they actually premiered as a team, and then the regular series started in March of '83.
Okay.
And the regular series ran for 100 issues, ending in April 1991 when it switched and it became X-Force.
That's right. Yeah.
That was the Rob Liefeld hysteria that was going on at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because New Mutants was pretty much dead in the water there for a while, and then Liefeld came in and really rejuvenated it with Cable and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about this later, but it definitely hit a weird point where it was no longer really a school about, kids learning powers. It was like they had all these weird characters in there. Like, do you remember Bird Brain?
I do.
Yeah, like that's where it got weird, and they were always on Asgard or in space, and it just got weird. And then Rob Liefeld, he kind of came in and he did rejuvenate it. Like, he brought in a bunch of new characters like Cable and Shatterstar, and then Deadpool.
Yeah, I was going to say Deadpool popped up there. Yeah, so that's the New Mutants. Any other keynotes about the New Mutants? I guess they're back now, right? There's another series of New Mutants going on.
Yes, right? Yes. They kind of rebooted the whole X-Men line a few months ago. I personally didn't buy it, so I don't know much about it. But the art style of the New Mutants title is vaguely like Bill Sienkiewicz's
there
style.
you go.
So yeah.
Yeah, because this is not a Bill Sienkiewicz issue, but when Bill Sienkiewicz took over the art for the New Mutants, that's when it really kind of took off. Although I'll say this though, X-Men at the time this came out was the #1 book, so right away this spinoff, New Mutants, was the #2 best-selling book. Right?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, people, just because of the X-Men tie-in.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, before we get into the issue, I guess let's break down the characters here.
Sure.
Let everyone know. We're dealing with 5 main characters. The leader of the team at this point is a girl named Karma.
Yes.
I totally forgot she existed.
Yeah. I think everyone did, yeah.
Because I didn't start reading the New Mutants until later, after Sienkiewicz, even. Like,
okay.
I'm trying to think who was drawing it yeah, I think Louis Simonson was the writer when I started reading it, but it was much later. So I remember like Brett Blevins, I believe, was drawing it for a while.
Yes. Brett Blevins, he actually did a series just a couple years ago for Image, and I bought it just because of his art. So yeah.
See, I used to hate his art when I was
really. Oh, I love it.
I despised it. But it kind of worked with the New Mutants though, the style. I didn't mind it. So yeah, Karma was the original leader. Her real name is Sean Khoi Mon. And she's Vietnamese, and she's the only character of the New Mutants who did not premiere in that graphic novel. She actually premiered in Marvel Team Up number 100 in 1980.
That's right. I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird. She's a 19-year-old from Vietnam, and so she's the oldest of the team members at 19. She's the most mature, and she's the leader of the team. She has a really tragic backstory. Are you aware of what happened here?
Yeah, I read it. I think it's that wasn't her entire family kidnapped?
Well, they were, because this is the Vietnam War era here.
Right.
Because she's 19 and, that's right in the heyday. So her father died during the Vietnam War, and then her mother and she had a twin brother and then 2 younger siblings. But her twin brother turned out to be evil, Michael.
Right.
He was I forget what his powers were, what his name was, but he was evil. So Karma and her mom and her 2 younger siblings get on a ship to try and get out of Vietnam, and they're coming up, and then they get boarded by pirates or something, and the pirates rape her mother and her.
Yeah, now this is coming back to me, yeah.
And her mother dies.
Pretty horrible, yeah.
So then Karma makes it to America with her 2 younger siblings, and she's their guardian, and good Lord. It's not a pleasant backstory.
No.
It's not good at all. All right, so what's her power, Michael? Do you remember her power?
Yeah, wait, is she the one that can possess people?
Yep, she can possess their minds.
Yeah, so she possesses them and she can move them around, but while she's doing that, she can still control her own body, but it's kind of limited.
Yeah, and they depict it in the comics in a cool way. Like there's like this purple thing around her head, and it connects to someone else's head.
Right.
Or around there. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, Michael, she is one of Marvel's first major lesbian characters.
I didn't know she was lesbian, or did I?
Well, not back here. Back here, they don't talk about it. But I guess there's a book called Mechanics, I believe.
Okay.
Are you aware of this title?
Mechanics, no.
It's spelled weird. It's not spelled like car mechanics. It's spelled like, I think maybe with a K in the there somewhere.
Okay.
But I think that was around 2001, 2002, and that was when they said she was a lesbian.
Okay.
But still, one of the first major ones in mainstream Marvel continuity. So anyway. All right, next we have Psyche.
Yeah.
Her real name is Danny Moonstar, and for a lot of the time she just, I don't know, Psyche, she got rid of that name. Eventually she switched it to Mirage.
Yeah, I kind of like Psyche better, but...
for the most part, they just call her Danny Moonstar a lot of the time.
Right,
Like
right, yeah.
Yeah, her code name was never that popular. She's a Cheyenne Native American from Boulder, Colorado, and she can create 3D images of someone's greatest fears or their heart's desire.
Right.
She can also communicate mentally with animals, including team member Wolfsbane, who we'll talk about in a minute.
Yep.
And yeah, she took over as the leader after Karma left. See, I remember her as the leader.
Right. And I believe Cannonball was also the co-leader, right?
Well, after her, did she leave the team then, and then he took over? Or
she might have left for a little bit and came back. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always think of her as the leader.
Okay.
So anyway, then we have Cannonball Sam Guthrie, 16-year-old from Kentucky. He's tall and gangly, a short, like blonde crew cut. That's the big thing. If they would just give that kid in the movie a blonde crew cut, all right, it's Cannonball. But
Sure.
And his visual appearance, he's very, like I said, gangly and awkward. And later on, we'll talk about Bob McLeod. But one of his biggest influences was Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine.
Okay.
And you can really see it in how he drew Cannonball. Like he
Interesting.
his ears and his face. Yeah, so that's the kind of art he really liked to do. So it really shows up in Cannonball. He can fly, and when he's flying, he has a force field around him that makes him invulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Nigh invulnerable, right?
I think invulnerable.
Well, it says nigh invulnerable, so that's why I say that. But.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think of exceptions to it, though, to make it just nigh, but I don't know. Are there exceptions? I don't.
You know, that's the thing. I don't remember coming across any, but he always specifies nigh invulnerable, so that's why I always have to...
But and when he's flying, there's like exhaust coming off the back of him, kind of like smoke and stuff like.
Right.
So it was always visually cool, I think.
Yep.
Next we have Wolfsbane, Rain Sinclair, a 13-year-old girl from Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And originally she was depicted as very religious and shy and timid. I don't know how she went from there, but she can turn into a wolf.
Right.
It's a big deal.
She actually has three forms. She has human, full werewolf, and then another one that's in between.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
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 These details are important, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like there is a scene in this book we're talking about where they're playing frisbee, and she's chasing it as a wolf, changes into a half wolf, half human, so she can reach the frisbee, and then changes back into a wolf.
And then when she's in the pure wolf form, she has the intelligence of an animal, right? As far as I know, yeah, and that's when Cheyenne can, or whatever. Sorry, Danny can communicate with her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, we have Sunspot, Roberto da Costa, 14-year-old from Brazil, and he's a rich, spoiled, arrogant kid. Hothead. He's a hothead, Michael. He's trouble, this Sunspot. But he's basically like a solar battery. He absorbs the sun's energy, and he gets super strength. And I always liked how they depict him, too. He's all black.
Oh, so
cool. His eyes, and then there's like black spots around his outside.
Yep.
Yeah. And originally, Bob McLeod said the original idea was to have him grow big like the Hulk when he got strong.
Okay.
But then they decided against that.
And
I think that was a good decision. So.
Yeah.
All right, now those are the main characters we're dealing with here, the 5 original New Mutants. But like when I think of the New Mutants, Michael, I also think of Cypher. Do you remember that guy?
Oh, of course, yep.
His only power was he could translate languages.
I know, it's ridiculous, eh? Yeah.
And they eventually killed him off.
Mm-hmm.
But then his sidekick a lot was Warlock.
Yep.
He was like a techno-organic alien.
Right.
You could change shapes. And he was always visually appealing. Warlock. He always looked unique. And we had Magma. Do you remember Magma?
Oh, yeah. She was kind of like the Human Torch, but she was all magma.
Yeah, she couldn't fly. Right?
No, she couldn't fly, but she was covered in fire, but depicted differently than the Human Torch.
Yes. And then finally, the other big one, Magic.
Right. Who's also in the movie.
Yes. I was surprised by that. The characters in the movie, it's the original ones. Just take out Karma and put in Magic.
That's right.
Because again, everyone forgets Karma exists.
That's true. And she disappeared. Like I think she disappeared after the first 20 issues or whatever, and then she just kind of...
Actually, I think it's the first 6 issues.
Okay.
She goes away, and they think she's dead, and then she comes back maybe about in the 20s somewhere, and she's really fat.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
Because her evil brother, I think, brainwashed her and made her a crime lord somewhere in like some country, I don't even know. And she just got real obese because she was a glutton as a crime lord. Not
one of Chris Claremont's best ideas, but whatever.
But then she eventually lost the weight. So good for her.
Yeah.
Because she was stranded in the desert for like months on end.
Okay. Because she had no choice then, eh?
It's a very long story, but yeah. So yeah, Magic is of course Colossus's little sister, Ilya Rasputin.
Mm-hmm.
And she, how would you describe her powers? She went into limbo.
She went into another dimension and aged like 10 years or whatever, and then came back, and now she was a teenager.
Yeah, and she's like a sorceress.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I don't know where her mutant powers end and the magic side of her begins. Like, what is her actual power?
That's the thing. I don't know.
Huh.
I guess she had to have one because like the teleporting thing, that's part of the limbo and sorcery stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's weird because she can't teleport directly. She has to teleport into limbo, then back out of limbo into our like another position. Yeah.
But I always liked how they did it. Like it would be like a disc would appear, and they would drop through the disc, and and she always had a big sword all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was always one of my favorite. She was probably my favorite character.
I would go Danny Moonstar is my favorite of that.
Actually, yeah, Danny Moonstar is my favorite, and then Magic. But it seemed like when I saw that Magic was in the movie, it made sense only because she kind of stood out. I guess because she always had the sword and everything, you know.
And she has the blonde hair. You need a different look, you know. Like everyone else in there is like you got 3 dark-haired kids, one blonde, and then that little girl from Game of Thrones, I guess, redhead. Yeah, Wolfsbane has short, red, spiky hair, kind of.
Right.
All right, so those are the New Mutants. One other character we need to mention here, Stevie Hunter.
Right.
Stevie Hunter, because this issue is all about Stevie Hunter.
Yep.
Her first appearance was X-Men 139. She was Kitty Pryde's dance teacher.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. And her, she came to know the X-Men were mutants, and so she's kind of an extended member of the family, I guess you could say. And her dancing career ended due to a broken leg that didn't heal properly.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Stevie Hunter. So now she's a teacher. Now she's a teacher.
Yep.
But so there you go.
A very well, a typical fleshed out Chris Claremont supporting character.
I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, so there you go. That's all the key players here. Are you ready to discuss the issue itself? Now, why did you pick issue 4?
That's a good question. It was completely random.
Oh, okay.
So because what I did was I was looking through the first few, and I thought, well, we usually don't do number 1s, and I wanted to get in before they introduced Magma because that's a few issues later. And I noticed this one was the first one by Sal Buscema, and so that's why I picked it. Yeah. And it's lucky that it was self-contained, right? Because a lot of these were 2 or 3 parters. So.
Yes, it is a very self-contained issue. Well, let's look at the cover here real quick. We got the 60 cents and the Marvel logo, like their big M, kind of with 60 cents on the left and the number 4 on the right of it. And
Very
then,
cool.
what do they call that, Michael? The little box underneath where they show the characters.
I don't honestly know. I don't think there's an actual name for it.
But here we got the 5 headshots of the main characters.
Right.
A little box. And then it says the New Mutants. And in the cover, oh, look, the version I'm looking at, Michael, it's got the Spider-Man logo instead of the UPCs. So that tells you it's a direct sale.
You got it. Yeah.
And the cover, we got Cannonball holding a knocked out Rain Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Karma and Danny Moonstar in the background looking frightened. And we have Sunspot holding up a big metal girder.
Yes.
And it looks like they're in a burning building of some sort.
I honestly, this is a great cover, I think.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
Yeah, the smoke is the first thing that caught my eye, like how the texture of the smoke is really well done. And I just like the way Cannonball is, centered out because of his shield, right? It creates makes him the center of attention. So
it's kind of like blasting in place. He's not moving anywhere, but the blasting is happening. Right.
And it's just in the girder sort of kind of like frames all the characters, right? So yeah, it's a really nice design. And I also like the fact that there's no text, there's no dialogue, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
And deep red in the background too.
Right. Nice contrast, yeah. Good all-around cover.
All right, so here we go. The main issue, an interesting splash page, Michael. It's just...
One sec here. Click. Hold on. Oh, I clicked and some spam came up. Just a second. And now my computer's frozen. Hold on here. We're limited by technology. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is a really cool splash page. We've got 4 panels of black intercut with the title, Who's Scaring Stevie?
That's right.
And and we have the sound effects of a phone ringing and then someone leaving a crank call or a prank call, whatever you want to call it, on Stevie's phone. Then we cut to the next page, and Stevie Hunter is... Huh?
Well, let me just interrupt here because you did mention it's a prank call, but on the black panels, they would have dialogue of the person on the other line. And here's what they're saying, Michael. You know who this is. You know what I want. Soon I'll come to get it. Now, once you find out who the crank caller is,
it kind of makes sense.
And what he wanted.
Right.
A little disturbing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, yeah, 'cause at first you're thinking it's a supervillain or something. Or
maybe they want like a treasure map.
Yeah.
There's some weird invention. No. The caller wants Stevie Hunter.
Uh-huh.
In a very carnal way. All right, anyway. So here we go. So Karma's there when Stevie gets this prank call, and Stevie hangs up, and Karma's like, hey, can we help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. And for me, I'm very familiar. I'm sure you are too, but this is very obviously Sal Buscema art, right?
See, no. See, I was like, I would never guess this is Sal Buscema art.
Okay, well, because Bob McLeod's inking it,
yes,
that softens up the pencils. But if you look at the way she's standing in the first panel and then the way she slams the phone, that to me is what gives it away. Yeah,
see, we'll talk about this later when we get into the art. But like usually when I think Sal Buscema, I think more sharper lines.
Sure, exactly, yeah.
But because I was like, this is very much Bob McLeod art, I would think. But especially the deeper we get into it.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
So Stevie and Karma walk out into the lobby of the dance studio, and there's like a redheaded kid sitting at the piano.
Right.
And Stevie says, Peter Bristow, how'd you get in here? Because, when you see someone you recognize, usually you use their full name.
Well, I call you Mike Dell, right?
That is, I guess. I'm the exception to the rule, I guess. Yeah. Everyone says Mike Dell. But, usually.
Yeah, of course.
Do that. So what's going on here with Peter Bristow?
So he's like, the door was open. I figured I'd tidy up the studio before class.
What a nice kid. Tidying up the studio.
You got it. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it. So then we cut to the next scene, and as you know, in a lot of the old X-Men comics, the X-Men would always be playing baseball, right? Just to kind of show that they're regular people. So this is the New Mutants. So what are they doing? They're playing Frisbee.
Yep.
I love it. And so this is kind of cool because, as you mentioned earlier, Wolfsbane. It's Danny throws the frisbee. Wolfsbane runs after it, changes into her half human form, catches it, throws it back, and then runs after it. And before Sunspot can catch the frisbee, she changes into a full werewolf and then grabs it with her mouth.
Yep.
Very cool. I love it.
Then she's licking his face when he's on the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Sunspot throws the frisbee, and then Cannibal catches it. And again, this is what makes me love this comic. But because he's a teenager and he's still learning how to use his powers, he's smashed into a tree, right?
Yeah.
Splits it in two.
Yeah, he has trouble stopping or turning.
Right. It's very cool. But since he's nigh invulnerable, he's fine. It's just the tree that's smashed, right? And I love this panel here. You can see the other students laughing in the background.
Yes.
It's so cool. And then the face of Professor X appears and is like, students, this is Professor Xavier. Please join me in my study at once, And so, Cannonball is all embarrassed and then Danny's like, whatever. And so then they have to run in and, of course, they run into Professor X's study or whatever. But before they can get to him, they meet up with, what's her name? Lilandra.
Yeah.
So I guess we should explain. Yes, Lilandra is she a queen of the
Shi'ar?
Oh yeah, an expatriate empress of the alien Shi'ar. So she is Professor Xavier's lover.
That's right.
Who he throughout the years, once in a while, he'll just take off for a couple of years and then come back, take off, come back. But at this point, she's living in the mansion with him.
Yeah. The legs might not work, Michael, but other things do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anyway.
But the thing with Lilandra is she's got the wacky haircut. I don't know what's going on with her hair. Explain her hair to me. I don't know.
Honestly, I've always wondered if it's supposed to be hair or if it's some kind of mutation because, I think, her sister, what is her name? Deathbird or something?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that she has feathers, so I wonder if this is supposed to be some type of feather formation. I don't know.
Or maybe like a ceremonial headdress.
Could be, yeah.
But it's like a black, almost like an arrowhead on her head.
Yeah, but it has these little rivets. What would you call it? Rivets? I don't know.
Or ridges, or
I
don't know. But it's weird. I don't know. It's not a good look.
I don't know. I don't mind it. I like Dave Cockrum's design, so I like it.
Well, I just noticed. Oh, all right, never mind. I thought I was like the same picture of Danny was used twice, but no, it's slightly different. If you look at the last panel on the previous page, Danny's looking over her left shoulder with her right hand out, kind of concerned. And then we get the exact same pose, but it's two different pictures. All right. It's very similar.
Yeah, I don't think 80s artists would stoop to those tricks, but I know that modern day artists do. So anyway, I won't get into that.
I was curious there.
Yeah.
All right. So Xavier calls them all into a study because he's got very important news. And what is this important news? I can't even remember.
Well, he starts off by talking about, as we mentioned earlier, about how he goes over how he's like, as you know,
I tried to kill you recently.
Yeah, basically, yeah. He describes how the real reason that he formed the New Mutants was because he was subconsciously prompted to reopen the school and gather them as students so that they could become living hosts for the brood's offspring. It's great. But anyway, basically he's asking them for his forgiveness and for them to trust him. And then basically he wants them to willingly continue to be their students, right? Or to be his students. Yeah. And so then
Danny steps up and says, all right, yeah, we'll do that. But all along though, Danny in her head, she doesn't trust him. Right.
And this is where it gets weird because in this scene, Professor X says that he doesn't, make a habit of reading their minds. But because they're maybe standing so close or whatever, at one point, Danny in her mind, where is it? Yeah. She's like, count me in, Sean, with or without the professor's blessing. And then she has the thought bubble. Part of me kind of hopes he says no. And then Professor X thinks, I heard that, as I suspect Danny intended. So this is what's weird is, he can hear their thoughts, like when they're just right up front like that. So.
Yeah, I guess when she what's the word, expressed it towards him telepathically, like really forced it into his head, I guess. But but we got internal conflict here is the important thing.
Right.
Not everything is all hunky dory in the land of the New Mutants. Danny doesn't trust Xavier. Xavier feels a little insecure about how to handle these kids. Internal conflict, very important.
Right.
All right.
Yes. And then I love at the end of this scene where Professor X says, "I'm not your enemy, Danielle. Stop treating me like one."
Yeah.
The X-Men have always had kind of a contentious relationship with Professor X. He's always doing sneaky stuff,
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So then we get a little scene here with him and Lilandra just chilling out, talking.
They start kissing. It's creepy.
Right. Yep.
Not a very good depiction of kissing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of awkward, eh?
A little bit.
Yeah. So then we get.
One other thing here, Michael, about
Sure.
internal conflict with New Mutants. I forgot to mention when we were talking about Cannonball. He was actually evil at first. Well, he wasn't evil, but he was recruited by the Hellfire Club to fight the New Mutants in the graphic novel.
Oh,
and
yes.
And then he saw the light and he joined the New Mutants to defeat the Hellfire Club. So then he became a good guy, but technically he was recruited to be a bad guy. So
right, I forgot about
that also is another dynamic to the team. I'm sure he doesn't feel all that comfortable either.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And they also mentioned the whole thing that's going on with Stevie Hunter here, right? That they fear she's in danger. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, they fear she's in danger, and so they have to come up with a way to help her out. Yeah. And so now it gets awesome. So now they go to Stevie's apartment, and then you can see what's his name, Sunspot, fiddling around with his doohickey, and Cannonball's like, "So what's that gizmo supposed to be, Bobby?" "It's a phone trace, Sam. It can trace any incoming call to its source. The professor helped me build it."
Built it.
Yeah, that's weird. But anyway, yeah, so it's like this little, I don't know what it is. Yeah, doohickey, but it's just kind of funny back then how difficult it was to trace calls, right?
Yeah, no caller ID. Yeah.
Yeah, and then remember there was no, at first there was no way to do it, and then remember in the 90s there was Star 69.
That's right, Star 69.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, it's just funny. So yeah, they've got this doohickey. So it's okay. Now we're gonna sit around and we're gonna wait for this guy to call again, and now we're gonna figure out who it is. So the hours pass. It's like they show 6:55, 7:23. So they're first call, second call, and then finally the fourth call. "Hi, Stevie." It's like the Zodiac killer, right?
Yeah.
They're waiting for his call. So then he calls up, and right away they trace the call, right? But it's coming from a phone booth.
Phone booth, yeah.
Right. So they jump on the car and they drive over there.
This is ridiculous, this thing. I don't know why they did this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, you mean Wolfsbane?
Yes.
Yeah, she's so, what does it say here? One sniff of the booth's interior sends her choking and gasping to the ground. "Oh, the stench! How could people be so disgusting?" Yes. Oh yeah, it's probably just like bodily fluids and whatnot.
Yeah, it's so weird though. Like when it happened, like they want her to pick up the scent of the caller. And so she goes in to sniff the phone booth, and she just flips out and she turns back into her human self because the stench is so bad. But when it first happened, Michael, I thought, she picked up the scent of like some demon or something.
That's what I thought. Yeah, like he's so evil that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, it's just someone pissed in the corner.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So she turns into a full werewolf, sniffs the scent, and then communicates her findings to Danny because Danny can communicate with animals, right?
Yes.
Which is so cool. So then soon, cuts to the next scene, and now they're at the high school. That's where they've traced this guy to. Well, they've traced the scent to.
I have a problem here with the coloring of this because we have Cannonball and Wolfsbane looking through the window of the gymnasium or wherever this dance is going on.
Okay.
And we get an idea how Wolfsbane can see things as they perform. And to quote the issue here, she no longer sees them merely as people, but also has brilliantly colored patterns of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they pick the brilliantly colored patterns of energy, Mike? How do they depict that?
Well, the people are black silhouettes, and they have it looks like it's supposed to be like red energy around them, but it's very poorly colored. It's like black dust with like red kind of colored.
It's basically black on black on black.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Let's see some colors in here. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe they'll fix that in like the reprint. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So yeah, they're hanging outside this window and they're looking in, and there's a high school dance going on, and so they're trying to figure out which one he is, but they don't know. And so they come up with this plan where some of them are going to go in and they're just going to hang out. And I'll say, where's his plan here? He's like,
well, the plan is to send Stevie in with them, and they're hoping that whoever made the call, when they see Stevie, they will react in a certain way that Wolfsbane will pick up.
Right.
Like they'll become heated or agitated.
Right. And then it's funny because as they're walking in, Sunspot's like, well, hey, this idea worked on Magnum, or this idea worked for Thomas Magnum on last week's Magnum PI. Come on, ladies, we're wasting time. Because this is a running gag, that they were obsessed with Magnum PI.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, like I remember they've referenced it in many issues, so I think it's just kind of like the running gag, you know?
All right.
So
they
anyway,
could have just said it worked last week on Magnum PI. I don't know if we needed it worked for last week for Thomas Magnum.
I know.
Magnum PI.
Well, that's Claremont writing his overwriting, so. But anyway, so then they go into the dance and they're hanging out, and Sam and Rain are outside watching with the, as we mentioned earlier, the brilliantly colored patterns of energy. And so basically they're chilling, and then it worked. What? Rain's got him there, the boy in the turtleneck. It can't be. I don't believe it. So now they know who the caller is. It's Peter Bristow.
Oh, no, not Peter. Yeah, exactly. The nice kid at the dance studio who's cleaning up.
Yep. You believe it? You know it isn't possible, but you know. So then he starts running away. He knocks Stevie out of the way, and then Wolfsbane smashes through the window and scares the crap out of all the kids, so they start running away. And then
Karma gets trampled.
Right.
Not unlike how X-Men readers totally forgot she existed. So did these party goers.
Yeah, exactly.
They ran right over.
So then Peter Bristow jumps into a car and drives away, but Cannonball, turns into his cannonball form and starts to chase after him. And then he sees a mother and her daughter walking across the street about to get run over, so he rescues them.
Yeah. And
then this is where it gets creative, because he's like, okay, well, I rescued them. Oh shit, I have no idea how to stop. So okay, well, I guess instead of running into the building, I'll fly up. And then as he's flying up, does he contact Professor X? No.
Well, he had to really strain just to fly up too. Like, he had never turned before. He doesn't know how to turn. So that was a big accomplishment to fly straight.
Right. Yeah, and so then Professor X, he must be sensing his, anxiety, and so he contacts him and tells him to execute Danger Room Maneuver 4, trigger your power in short bursts to slow your descent. So he basically just, like a rocket, like it's like when you brake, right, and you stop and start your brakes. So so he falls down on his ass, and the kid and the mother but this is, again, great art, showing him sitting, kind of laughing it off, and the woman looks like she's
dead.
The mother's dead, but the kid's fine. The kid's crying.
Well, the kid's crying.
Yeah. So.
But, we should mention when he's holding someone in his force field, they're also nigh invulnerable.
Right. That's right.
They're all right.
Okay, so then back to the car that Peter Bristow's in. So he's smashes through a fence, crashes into like a shed or something, and then jumps out. And then the rest of the team is chasing after him. And then,
well, they say danger. There's a big sign, danger, blasting. I guess it's a construction site.
Right. Yeah. So then Sunspot. Oh yeah, Sunspot. Sorry, Stevie's got her bum knee, which she actually says it's my bum knee.
Yeah, because I was like laughing at this when it first happened, and then I found out later, she actually does have a bad knee for dancing. I was like, this is terrible. Why would she? Oh, okay, I guess she does have a bad knee.
So anyway, so then Sunspot's like, Karma's like, Sunspot, stay with Stevie. And so orders him to stay with Stevie. Then the rest of the team goes after Peter.
Well, she wants him to stay with Stevie because the car is like on fire or something, and she says that he can do something about it, although I'm not sure what he can do. Apparently he picks it up and throws it, but I don't know what that does. Yeah,
well, I think it's because when he's in that form, he's probably invulnerable to the fire. Maybe that's it.
But he says he can feel it when he walks up to it.
Oh, okay.
Like I can feel the heat, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the rest of the team goes into this burning building, and then as they're in there, there's I-beams falling on them and almost killing them. And so, like we said earlier, so Sunspot runs over to this car and picks it up and gives it a toss. But,
I don't know where it goes or what happens to it.
Yeah, it kind of just disappears. But then, yeah,
they don't even show it. There's just a big boom, but we don't know really what happens to the car. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. But now more things are on fire, and then we see little things labeled TNT there.
Yep.
And then Professor X cuts in. He's like, Sunspot is not exaggerating, Karma. The situation is grave. A blast of such magnitude may well demolish the entire factory. So then they're like, okay, we got to get the heck out of here. So then they see Peter Bristow. He's got a stick, and he's just about to hit Rain Sinclair.
Well, he's already hit her once. He's beaten the holy hell out of her with the stick.
Okay.
When she was a wolf, he hit her with it and then knocked her out.
Oh, yeah, right.
So now she's like a human form, and he's ready to beat her again with the stick.
Yeah, yikes. And then, as you said earlier, yeah, so then now Karma uses her power to possess him. And yeah, it's such a cool design. Like, it's just pure pink energy, but it has like a square, it's like an explosion, but it's square. It's so cool.
Jagged, squared edges around the outside of it.
Cool.
They're all not uniform either. They're kind of like sporadic, but it's pretty cool. I like it. Right.
And so anyway, so then there's another explosion, and then Cannonball flies in and rescues Rain, flies her out. Then the rest of them are running, and then Karma points out that she can move while she's possessing someone, but what does she say here? I cannot move as quickly as normal while possessing someone. So yeah, it's cool because their powers all have specific limitations, which I really like,
And they're also still learning to use them as well.
Right, exactly. It's so cool. So then Sunspot's holding up like the roof here as they're running out, and then just as they run out, he dives, and then everything's kind of okay now. So now this is where the story takes a little bit of a weird turn. Okay, so they sit down with Peter Bristow, and they discover his origin. And the way they do this is that
this is great. Yeah,
is that Mirage or Psyche. Is able to take his thoughts and create mirages out of them, literal mirages. And so they can see his thoughts, and the first thing they see is they find out his fantasy, and they see a shot of him making out with Stevie Hunter. Yeah. So now we know the reason that he's been doing we don't know the reason yet, but we know partly why he's been making these prank calls. Because he's obsessed with her, right? He's in love with Stevie Hunter.
Yeah, Danny can bring out their greatest fears or their heart's desire. So his heart's desire is to make sweet, sweet love to Stevie Hunter.
Okay. That's right. And he's also, let's also point out that he is her student. So she's obviously a few years older, right?
Yeah, he's a teenager. She's like, 30 something, right. I would guess.
And so then so this is where it gets weird. So now, Danny reaches deeper, and fantasy gives way to Peter's daily reality. And we see a shot of Peter's father standing over him with a belt. This is for your own good, Peter. You'll thank me for it when you're older. Yeah. Yes, Pop.
And look at the mom in the background, arms folded, just angry at the boy.
Enabling him,
Yeah. She wants to see that boy get whipped.
Yeah. So this is where we discover that Peter is beaten by his father, and the mother doesn't really care. The mother encourages it, right?
Yep.
And so then, so Peter realizes what's going on, so he gets all freaked out. He's like, "You little witch! I'll kill you for what you've done." But then, what's her name? Karma possesses him again, so gets him under control. And then they see, because when he tried to leap at her, Cannonball grabbed his shirt and his shirt ripped, so now we see all these welts on his back.
Keep in mind, he's wearing a sweater and a button-down shirt. Grabs the back. And it rips off the back of the shirt and the sweater.
Right. just from leaning over, yeah.
I guess his clothing is made of tissue paper.
Yeah. It's made of the same material Hulk Hogan's shirts were made of. But anyway.
But yeah, his back is all scarred up and welts and cuts and bruises and. Yeah.
Right. So
his dad's whipping him all the time.
Right. All the time. Daily. And so basically he breaks down and starts crying. And so this is what he says, when I started dancing, Miss Hunter, I thought you were the most beautiful woman in the world. I couldn't help loving you. You said you liked me, but when you wouldn't punish me, no matter what I did, I figured you were lying, that you really didn't care, because if you loved me, you'd hit me. I wanted to get even.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah, some pseudo Freudian, I don't know what the fuck motivation going on here. Don't know how accurate that is, but I mean, yeah, this has definitely been, this trope has been used in other, fiction before. So definitely a thing.
So he apologizes to Miss Hunter, and she hugs him, and everything's
Right.
all right. And then they show the police leading him away, but
yeah, it's like, yeah.
But when you read it, though, they're taking him to a hospital for evaluation.
Right, yeah.
Even though it looks like his hands are cuffed behind him and everything. But
yeah, that might have been something changed later. But yeah, when it drives, see, it says ambulance. It doesn't say police. It doesn't say paddy wagon, right? So.
Yeah, but there is a cop leading him away, though. But
right.
Anyway. And, look how Lalandra here in this public scene, she's got like a head wrap on.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess that is her hair or whatever that she's covering up. I don't know. But.
So then it's funny because then Professor X is kind of criticizing them. He's like, well, it was good that you did this, but you could have done better.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to, what does he say here? I want an analysis of tonight's incident, what was done right and wrong, and how your performance could have been improved, ready for tomorrow's class. And then Stevie Hunter's like, the man has a point, kids, but for what it's worth, to me, you done good, real good. And the kids are all smiling, and that's the end. Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, and all the kids are happy.
Yep.
Although next issue, Viper and the Silver Samurai. Why didn't you pick that issue, Michael?
Oh, I could have, but
that would have been great.
Would have been more fisticuffs, probably. But
yeah, absolutely. All right, so there it is. That's the big issue. It's like a very special issue of the New Mutants.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Like an after-school special.
Yeah,
New Mutants.
100%.
Child abuse. That's something. All right. So let's talk about the creators here. Chris Claremont. We've talked about him a lot in the show. Everyone knows Chris Claremont. He wrote issues 1 through 54. Then he did issue 63, issue 81, and the first 3 annuals. So he was quite a bit of New Mutants there.
Yeah.
The rating here is, it is what it is. It's some good stuff. I like the internal conflict on the team. I like how we see the kids learning their powers. That's good. Like they are just kids. They're not seasoned vets. But a lot of the dialogue is pretty terrible. And
yeah. See, this is the thing: is Chris Claremont. His dialogue is not always great. Sometimes it's good. He definitely over-explains things. But the thing about this issue is, even though I have problems with it, is as soon as it was done, I wanted to read another one.
Really?
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's like, over the years, like, I don't know. Sometimes I like Chris Claremont, sometimes I don't, but I don't know.
When I was done reading it, I wanted to beat you with a belt.
Come on. Get out of here. I thought you liked Chris Claremont.
It was all right. It was fine. It wasn't anything great, but it wasn't awful or anything. But
yeah, like that's what I mean. Like, this specific issue is not great, especially the way it ends. Like the whole explanation for his, deal. But like when you crack it open and they're playing frisbee and just like the tracing the phone call, it's just I just love that stuff. And the fact
you get to see each team member use their powers.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of good stuff here. And it's definitely geared towards a younger audience. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could say that, but I mean, is it really any different than an issue of X-Men at that time? I don't know. I
think so. Yeah, I think so. Because, like, look at the plot here. We're not dealing with life and death matters. We're not dealing with actual fights, and the biggest action, the building, saving everybody from the collapsing building was action, and him saving the mother and daughter was action. But no fights, no. The stakes are pretty small.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure, I don't remember if Chris Claremont said it or someone else pointed it out, but in these first few years of New Mutants, there was really no, like, it's not like Professor X would send them out to fight, supervillains.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. They weren't really superheroes. They were strictly in training.
They're basically, cool. This whole plot is basically just trying to figure out who's making a prank phone call.
Right. Which I think is fine.
Yeah, but it's not like,
mistakes. Yeah.
Exciting stuff. Let's put that way. Although they did make it exciting by the building collapsing and everything. So
Right.
All right. So, yeah, that's Claremont. All right, let's get into the art because we need to talk about this. So, yeah, technically the penciler is Sal Buscema.
Yep.
And he drew issues 4 through 17 and issue 54. Now, we've talked about Sal before on the show, so we don't have to get into all that. But let's talk about Bob McLeod.
Sure.
Because this is where it gets interesting. All right. So Bob McLeod was born in 1951 in Tampa, Florida. And like I mentioned earlier, his biggest influence was Mort Drucker and Mad Magazine. Mm-hmm. And he actually began working in the Marvel production department in 1973 after a recommendation from Neil Adams.
Okay.
Because here's what happened. He was struggling trying to get work. He kept getting rejected from DC and Marvel. And he had a buddy of his who worked with Neil Adams. And so his buddy said, here, let me show your stuff to Neil Adams. And he showed it to Neil Adams and he says, well, what do you want to do? And he says, I just need a job, because he had like $10 left to his name and he was about to move back home. And so Neil, the first time he met him, this is the first time he ever met Neil Adams. Neil Adams picked up the phone, called Marvel, and got him a job.
Wow.
Yeah, what a guy, huh?
Yeah, that's great.
So he started working in the production department. And what this meant was he would do corrections on lettering and like minor stuff, like putting page numbers on stuff, like just monkey work to finalize the art, just to help out. And then he would eventually work under John Romita Sr. Doing art correction for whenever there was something that needed fixed in issues. And eventually he got his first gig as a penciler on Marvel's Crazy magazine.
Okay.
Do you remember this?
I never read it, but I know what it was. It was their version of Mad Magazine.
Exactly right. And I had no concept of it whatsoever. Yeah. But this is like perfect for him. This is exactly what this guy wanted to do, like draw Mad Magazine. So here he is drawing Crazy. And he would appear in 12 issues total over the next 7 years. So he would do about one every year from 74 to 81. One of his things that he did was Teenage Hulk. That's what he was known for.
Okay.
I guess that was the thing. Teenage Hulk. He was more of an inker than a penciler.
Yeah.
And
I would say he is a better inker than a penciler.
Yeah, and he would agree. He says he has a natural affinity for inking, but he taught himself how to draw just by, studying others and stuff. But he considers himself an inker probably first, though, He actually inked Uncanny X-Men 94, which was the first appearance of the new team.
Wow. Well, yeah, the second appearance after Giant Size X-Men.
Yeah, and the first appearance in the regular series.
Yep.
And Dave Cockrum did not like his inking, so he did not do any more.
Yikes.
Yeah. And I went back and looked at it today just to see, and he did kind of over-ink it. Sure. I guess Cockrum thought he changed his pencils too much.
Okay.
He didn't like it. So then later on, though, he did 2 fill-in issues of the X-Men. He inked issue 151, and then he drew issue 152. And Claremont and Louise Simonson liked his work so much that they offered him the regular penciling job.
Really?
He was actually offered the regular gig drawing the Uncanny X-Men.
Wow, okay.
But they also said you could either do that, or we have another project we're doing with Claremont. You could be a co-creator of the New Mutants. So you could either be the regular penciler on X-Men, the most popular book in the world, or you could be a co-creator of New Mutants with Chris Claremont. He decided to be a co-creator. And that is a smart decision because he gets royalties now.
Yes.
Stuff. So
it
really was a smart decision. He says that was the smart decision that he made, but he said the dumb decision that he made was leaving the book because he did not last long on the book. He drew and inked the graphic novel. Then he, let's see, where issues did he draw here? He drew the first 3 issues and the first annual. Then he inked issues 4, 5, 7, 8. And then later on, he came back in issue 75 many years later. And he also inked annual 4. So he only drew the first 3, inked 4 others, and then left.
Did he say why?
Yes, I found out today because it took me a while to find it. But remember how I said the graphic novel production, they were supposed to be an issue, then they made it a graphic novel. Sure. So he fell behind. He just couldn't keep up with the work. And because this was his first regular big gig as a penciler, book. So it was a lot of work and he wanted to do a really good job. So he wanted to take his time with it. So he kept having to rush and he didn't like the stuff he was doing. So he's like, all right, I'm just going to ink. Because if I'm inking, I can pretty much control the look of the book anyway, just through my inking. And so they brought in Sal Buscema and he inked some of Sal Buscema's stuff, but he's like, I did not like inking Sal Buscema's art.
Really?
Because he said Sal was doing about 3 books at the time, and he said it was really boring stuff. And if you look at this issue, his complaint, one of his big complaints was he would just do a lot of medium perspective shots, panel after panel after panel, and he said it was just very boring to do. Mm-hmm. So he asked to get off the book.
Wow.
And he said that was a stupid decision, but that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he really didn't have any other extended runs. He would do fill-in issues, a lot of stuff. He's also known for inking Kraven's Last Hunt.
That's right. Yep.
And I believe he worked for DC, and I think he inked the issue where Superman revealed himself to Lois Lane.
That's right. Yeah, he was on Superman for a few years, for sure. Yep.
But otherwise, New Mutants was the peak of his work.
Oh, it's too bad. I've actually got him on Facebook. I think he's teaching art now somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But so New Mutants, wow, he co-creates the team and then he leaves like 4 issues later. That's pretty smart decision though, getting all that royalty, because he's getting royalties from the the movie and everything too.
That's great. Good for him.
Yeah, Bob McLeod making it work. But yeah, so when I looked at this art, I'm like, I don't recognize Sal Buscema here at all, but I did recognize Bob McLeod. So again, we always talk about who should get credit for the art. Is it really the penciler? Is it the inker? Here, clearly Bob McLeod is controlling what the final pencils look like.
That's true. Absolutely, yeah.
And it's very interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, well, because the thing is like Sal Buscema is, I love his art, but he is a very, I guess you could say, plain. Like I like his art, but yeah, it's not as exciting as his brother or Jack Kirby. And so, yeah, I can see an inker basically just going in and just overpowering it because it is pretty straightforward layouts, right? So
yes. And Bob McLeod also inked John on Conan, and he said that's where he really learned a lot about drawing comics.
Nice.
Because he said John Buscema is tremendous.
Right.
Yeah. So Bob McLeod, there he is. There's your New Mutants. Yeah. Anything else about? I thought the art here was fine. It wasn't anything great. I think that is a legit criticism about the storytelling in the panels and the compositions. Very boring, straight stuff.
You know what's funny though is that when because I read the first 54 issues of New Mutants, a few years ago, and I fully expected. I was so excited to get to the Bill Sienkiewicz issues. Have you ever read those?
No, I never have really. Oh, I read one or two of them.
Okay, but yeah, you know what his art style is like, though.
Yeah.
And I expected to like those so much more, but once I got to those, I started to really miss this style.
Really?
Because Bill Sienkiewicz is technically a much better artist, but his storytelling is more confusing, and so it kind of just made me enjoy the older issues, like the earlier issues, more because the storytelling is so straightforward.
Yeah, I just really know Sienkiewicz from the covers, like
his covers are beautiful, but the interiors are good, but it's just that it gets a little bit confusing. I don't think he's as good a storyteller.
Well, I know we did that one issue of Moon Knight on here, and storytelling was an issue in that one as well.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but that was a real early Sienkiewicz, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the art here's fine. It's nothing great. It's middle of the road, I would say. But it is what it is. I don't know. Overall, I'd give this issue like a 5. It's
so funny. I would give it If the ending was better, I would have given it an 8. But because the ending is ridiculous,
holy hell, an 8?
Yep. Well, because I love Chris Claremont, I love Bob McLeod, I love Sal Buscema, so I'll give it a 7.
Holy hell.
So if the ending was better, I'd give it a higher rating, but I'll give it a 7 because, like I said, this makes me want to read more New Mutants.
Like it's an affectionate 5. I liked a lot of the stuff, but it's average. I think in every sense of the word. It's pretty much.
I guess, and the other thing too is that I think because I've read a lot more modern comics than you have, and it makes me love these older comics.
Yeah, probably. Like I hold these older comics to a higher standard of better older comics, where you're comparing them to new stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I like I said, I liked a lot of the New Mutants, like the groundwork they did for the team and everything. But the writing was pretty. Again, we're talking about a prank phone call and an after-school special.
Yeah.
To get excited about here. So there is anything else about the New Mutants, Michael?
I just gotta say, I've tried to create my own comic book characters before, and I think Chris Claremont and I guess Bob McLeod, I think these characters are great. I think their powers are great. There's just so much thought put into them. Like, it's really admirable.
And they're all very distinctive physically as well.
Right.
They all have a distinctive look, so you know what you're getting, and then they come together. It's a nice group assembly because you got Rain, who's little with the red spiky hair. You got the tall, gangly Cannonball.
Yeah.
Like it's really good stuff. And,
and that's the thing is that even if Chris Claremont is not the greatest writer in the world, he clearly puts a lot of passion into it, right? Like,
and we should mention when he's writing this, he's also writing X-Men, and he's writing.
Yeah.
He's probably doing other stuff too. Like he was writing so much stuff back then.
Right.
It's not like every issue is going to be a masterpiece.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
They're just trying to cash checks is what they're trying to do.
Yeah, there are people that think at this point his writing was already in decline, but I personally think that around this time, also on X-Men, like I think this was, for me, this is the peak of his writing. I think this is his best era, But
think how different history could be, Michael, if Bob McLeod had decided to be the regular penciler on X-Men.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that would have meant no Paul Smith.
Oh, that's right. Paul Smith, that's my favorite X-Men era. So
me too. That's my favorite.
Oh, all right.
He's the best. And so I would have I like Bob McLeod and all, but I don't think he would have been right. I'm surprised that they offered him that job.
Yeah, I love Bob McLeod, but I don't know if I would offer him X-Men either, right? I know what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know if he was worthy of that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they went the way they did.
Yeah.
But all right, so there is New Mutants. Any other final do you have a definitive New Mutants storyline? Like when you look back over all the issues and does anything really stick out to you?
That's a good question. I mean, the one that people usually mention is the Demon Bear saga, right?
Yeah, that's what they loosely based the movie on.
Right. So that's the thing is that's probably the most memorable story.
I never read it.
It's pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's definitely pretty good, but it's not a masterpiece, but it's definitely good.
And we should mention that that's based on Danny Moonstar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But no, to be honest, like other than that, most of the stories are pretty low key like this, and so there's really nothing specific that stands out.
I guess for me, it's when Cypher dies. And remember.
Okay. Yeah. And
Warlock was trying to comprehend what death meant, so he was actually carrying him around. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
His dead body.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to it and starting at 55 when Louise Simonson starts.
I definitely want to read some Sienkiewicz, so I'll probably go back.
Yeah.
I did read a few. Like I read the Legion stuff when Legion the TV show came out. I read some of that, but I like to go back and read more. All right, Michael. So next week on the big show,
here we go.
Pick. And we're going to go, I already spoiled it last week, but we're going to go All-Star Squadron number 3.
Oh, yes.
1981. This is written by, I believe, Roy Thomas and drawn by Rick Buckler, I believe.
Rick Buckler, yeah. I think, is it Rich Buckler or Rick?
Probably Rich.
Okay.
I'll trust you. Whatever you said is probably correct. Again, I liked the All-Star Squadron when I was a kid. This is like Earth 2, like Justice Society kind of stuff. But the big reason I picked this specific issue is it stars a little fellow I like to call Solomon Grundy.
Oh, nice.
I love Solomon Grundy.
This is great. Once again, you scooped my picks because this is something I would totally have picked myself. So,
yeah.
Great.
I haven't gone back and read it yet. So again, I haven't read this since I was like 5 years old or 6 years old or whatever. But I looked through it real quickly, and I still remember some of these panels. I still remember them all these years later. Yeah, it's crazy.
And you still have it?
Probably somewhere. I sold so many comic books over the years, like at flea markets and stuff. We used to have a table, and so I sold a bunch of stuff. But yeah. All-Star Squad. I should have it somewhere, maybe. But
sure.
All-Star Squad.
Funny. Yeah, I've got a handful of issues of this series, but I've never actually seen this cover, so I've certainly never read it.
I think I only had like the first 3 or 4.
Okay.
But
there's some really good stuff later by Jerry Ordway. So anyway. But yeah, cool. Good pick. Looking forward to it.
All right, Michael.
Guess that wraps it up for this week. So yeah, this is Flea Market Fantasy. There's a new episode every Tuesday, and every week we rotate between Mike Dell and myself, Mike L. We pick a different Bronze Age comic. That's comic books from the 1970s and 80s. So please join us every week Follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher under Comic Book Syndicate. Go to the Comic Book Syndicate website. We're also on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're also on Facebook, right? Yeah, so we haven't made it to the radio yet. We're not on the radio. The one barrier we haven't crossed. But yeah, so anyway, every Tuesday, please leave comments, share the post, tell your friends, email us at mail@comicbooksyndicate.com. Let us know what you think.
That's hilarious.
Yep. So far, we're at a total of 0 emails, but we're going to try and get that number up, right? Just nudge it up a little bit by next week. Anyway.
Like a telethon to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Please send us an email. Anyway. Okay, so until next Tuesday, this has been Flea Market Fantasy.